Good afternoon. I want to speak for a moment about a video I saw. I think it was Ronan Farrow or via Fair and Balance, the show. He was talking about Dick Cheney having qualms about the Republican Party becoming too extreme. And it touched me. I meant to put this in an earlier video, and it's important. This is the same week. This is the same week the IPCC put out the climate document, showing you how bad things are going to get. I'm not going into it here. I've done videos on it before. You can look it up for yourself. It's pretty much everything we already knew. I get it that those documents are kind of like for historical fact. And those documents are for like people in the future to look back and be like, oh, this is that. You just explained it. It says human beings contributing to climate change and things we can do to stop it and how bad it's getting. That climate change is irreversible, yada yada yada, all that. Look it up. I think that Dick Cheney somewhat does belong to an era before we came into this era of just like belligerent anti-intellectualism. I mean, Bush probably was, that administration probably one of the biggest purporters of that, of just being stupid. I've talked about it before about this attack on intellectuals, that the effete intellectual and these worldly sissy men. I've talked about it on before. I'm not going into that again. John Kerry with the windsurfing, Obama with the tan suit. He's a sissy. All that. I've talked about it before. I think that the fact that Dick Cheney, and I'm going to talk about it in good faith and bad faith, simplest way to do this video. I think that he's recognizing that we're in a new era. We're in an era that we should not have gone into, but we're here anyway. I think that maybe Dick Cheney's era was kind of an era to where people really didn't believe in climate change because we really didn't know. And it wasn't necessarily like, oh, we're Americans and coal is in our blood. It wasn't that. It was just like we didn't know certain things 20 years ago. We didn't know. Like if you don't know certain things, you just don't know them. There's some evidence in a police investigation that comes out later that you just, at the time of the initial investigation, you don't have. It's just things that come out later that you're able to act on. Let's do it. Good faith. Dick Cheney is recognizing that, as I said before, it's a new era. That the Republican Party not wanting to really go for the infrastructure. Republican Party following Trump behind all the stuff he's done. Republican Party really not acting on climate change. Trump pulling out of the WHO, attacking the International Criminal Court by name, putting sanctions on the International Criminal Court, threatening them. I think there's a recognition that this hurts America's image. And I think, I've been talking about it before, but I think that Dick Cheney is one of those conservatives that is actually grown up and is willing to look at things from more than one perspective. That's what you're looking at here. I think he recognized Trump did indelible harm to the rule of law in this country by his actions, by his deeds, by the things he said, by the moves he made. I think he recognized that Trump went too far. I don't care how homophobic you are. I don't care how racist you are. He went too far. He crossed some lines that have been crossed. And I think he recognized, once again, in good faith, we're going to have another major pandemic at some point. There's no doubt about it. Climate change is contributes to these things. I'm not going into that here. We're going to have some major emergencies. What Trump did with the everything's fake news and everything we don't like is fake, what he really did was he did indelible harm to the rule of law as well as that, but to science and to people. And there was a study done, I think last month, I think it was in July, that was talking about how Republicans have lost faith in science. I did a video on that. I told you how from the 70s to today, they think it dropped like 22%. And that's because for Republicans, science is inconvenient. That science back in the 70s and the 60s was about eugenics and sterilizing black people and about bigger bombs and bigger guns and going off to space and all sort of stuff. Whereas now we have science I see every day where they talk about like people who live in black areas, live in poor communities, are more affected by climate change, are more affected by pollution. Republicans don't want to hear that shit. It's not about it being true or false. They don't want to hear that. And they don't want to contribute to that. They want to hear about bigger guns and bigger engines for their cars and bigger bombs and, you know, stuff like that. How to build stuff to kill people better, you know. I think that that study makes my point. That they lost faith in science. I think that Dick Chaney probably knows that, hey, that's bad. That I mean, you look at if you look at politics outside the United States, you recognize that there's no other political party out there that just 100% is as climate denialist as the Republican Party. Nowhere. Even AFD in Germany, they're Nazis, believes in climate change. There's nowhere else out here in the English-speaking world where people are as angry and adamant and ignorant and anti-intellectualist as GOP. Period. And if you have a brain in your head, you know that's not good. This is all stuff that puts America in a corner by itself. And you can't be a ruling empire and be cornered by yourself. As well as I said before, we're going to have a major pandemic. We're going to have a major emergency at some point. And what Trump did by everything's fake. When something big does happen, you've done so much damage that, you know what I mean? It would be like someone going up to the fire station down the street from here and popping all the tires on the fire truck. At some point, we're going to need those trucks. At some point, it's going to be an emergency. Maybe in a week, 6 months, a year. But when we need those apparatuses, they're going to be slowed down. They're going to have to get somebody to come out. You know what I'm saying? We're going to be disproportionately affected because of that. I think Dick Chaney knows that. That's good faith. It's about bad faith. This is what I want to talk about. The polls are pretty clear on this culture war that Trump pushed. That the young people, the young Christians, aren't quite as hot about the Jews, Israel. That's something that I have been quite pleased to see. They're not all this stuff that I heard growing up that the Jews are the children of Israel, children of God, and that whatever Israel wants to get. If you believe that, you're not really a conservative. I've always said that. Because a conservative is like, we need to cut government stuff, right? You can't do that and then say, well, I'm a Christian and I believe you. That's not conservatism. That's some shit you made. That's something you came up with yourself. That ain't the conservatism I grew up hearing in the books. That ain't it. Conservatism is about cutting taxes and less government. Not giving out $1 billion weapons deals to Israel to go bomb somebody that they're not even being attacked by. So the polls are changing. You're watching demographic shift in America and in the world. World's becoming browner, and the world's moving towards a more urbanized society. He knows that. I've talked about these gay guys and the GOP and all that stuff that have basically acted in such a manner to harm their own people. And I've talked about how some of those guys have been caught and lost their jobs, and I celebrate that. That's great to hear. It's great to hear because what it shows you is, even in 2021, I don't care how smart you are. I don't care if you went to Harvard, Stanford. I don't care where you went to. UCLA, I don't care where you went to. If you're living your truth, they won't accept you. And I think for them, that's a blind spot. That's a heck of a blind spot to just say, I'm not going to deal with people because they're gay or whatever. That's another good thing because that puts them off in the corner by themselves. I think Dick Chaney, to a greater or lesser extent, understands the Republican Party is and has been making decisions that many people in the general population don't like. And this I'm not saluting Joe Biden. I'm not putting him on a platform. I'm not lionizing Joe Biden in any way, shape, or form. Joe Biden is a joke. Kamala Harris is a joke. They're an embarrassment to the left. Be clear. But Trump put the bar very low. I think that for Republicans from Dick Cheney's era, they were law abiding to a certain extent. I've heard that Dick Cheney was a pretty good boss. I heard he was, a pretty good guy as a boss compared to Trump. So I think I want to be clear that I think you're dealing with two different types of conservatives. You have some people who really do believe in conservatism, and you have some people who are just like, you know what, I'm going to use conservatism to be cruel and to harm people I don't like. That's the difference. And I think I see Dick Cheney maybe as more of a long range thinker, 20, 30 years. I think he's more, whereas Trump, as I've said in the earlier video, he's not. He never was. It was about just talking about water saving toilets and dishwashers and joking about climate change because we had a warm winter and a couple years ago, and Trump joking about making fun of retarded people and fat people. That was Trump. That's how I'll see him. It's just a person that was just basically a petulant child. They said when they were shooting gas over the border at the illegal immigrants, they said that Trump was out there cheering because he thought the government, Border Patrol was attacking them, not that they were trying to hold people off from the border. And it put that in my head how cruel that is, how cruel of a man he really is. And I'm not sure other Republicans deep down would agree with that. I think there is a respect for rule of law. I think that Dick Cheney, he belongs to an earlier age of Republicans. Not gonna read his book, but I think that it's sort of sad. I mean, I know people will read it and be like, "Oh, that's good." It's kind of sad that like the first Bush, Daddy Bush, he didn't like Trump, and this guy Dick Cheney didn't like Trump. It's sad because it's like they set this up, and Trump built on it, and now we're in the facing what's it called, andropause or whatever. We're facing this global pandemic where you keep getting new strains, and eventually we're gonna have to get a new vaccine. That's what's coming. What's coming at some point is either the vaccines are not going to be any good, and we're going to be up a creek, or it's going to be like a flu, just a forever flu. It's just going to last. It's going to become endemic to humans. We find ourselves here because of the anti-intellectualism that George Bush made fashionable, making fun of climate change. And I've talked on here about the worldly, the effete liberal, the effete intellectual, the Obama with the tan suit, John Kerry with the windsurfing and traveling and all that. These are sissies. That's a big thing in politics, and we can't forget that either. That really started that era. The carrying guns to political rallies. That was the Bush era. I remember it was a black man, back when I was a conservative, black man in Arizona with the AR-15 on his chest. He had a suit on, and he had like a thing in the magazine well so you could see it wasn't loaded. And I remember just kind of realizing then that, hey, this is a new era. That, hey, this is something different. And now we had this happen all the time. Now you have white men running around with guns all the time. I seen a thing where these white guys went to a subway. One of them had a grenade launcher. One of them had a rocket launcher on his back. One of them had a machine gun. This is a 50 like an old machine gun holding it by the barrel. This is the era that the Bush family got us into. And I'll never forgive and I'll never forget the fact this could have been prevented. We could have acted on climate change. We could have put proper funding into the CDC. We could have acted when Trump was first made aware of COVID back in January of 20, excuse me, last year. Of 20, he could have acted. He didn't. He put it off for 2 months. We could have acted on this. Whenever I hear conservatives talking about, complaining about the masks, I always think back to that. They put us into this. It was this era of stupidity. Trump didn't even want to wear a mask. And he caught COVID. I think that I'm not going to accept any type of apologies or anything. I think I think Dick Chaney was making a tactical statement that he's really speaking to a Republican Party that he's out of touch with. It would be like it's this guy. He started the Crips. I think he's in prison. Tookie Williams or something. He was in Crips. If he was to get out of prison right now, the gang is in a much different world than it was 30 years ago. He'd have to recognize. I think that's what we're looking at with Dick Chaney, that this is a different world. It's not the same world that you left. And you had a hand in creating this behemoth, this wanton vagabond that's just killing and destroying and wreaking violence all over the world. Thank you for listening.